constant.
Hitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, and welcome all of you to our last class. We'll be finishing this unit today. I guess some of you requested a Q&A session for an hour or so, so we're going to try to squeeze that in on Saturday. But we're going to finish up the section of the Eastern Ocean of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Let me share my screen. Oops. Okay. Oh, I didn't share it yet. Hold on. There we go. Okay. Just join me here in reciting this. Nana Shastra Vicharana Ekanipuno Saddharma Samstapako Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuvane Manyo Sharanyakaro Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Nandena Mataliko Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyuga Shri Jiva Gopalako. So please read the translation.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis, namely Srila Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Jeev Goswami, and Sri Gopal Bhatt Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus, they are honored all over the 3 worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna.
Jai, thank you. And then we have the memorization verse. Anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjataha nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyamuchyate. Please read.
When one is not attached to anything but at the same time accepts anything in relation to Krishna, one is rightly situated above possessiveness. Hare Krishna.
Jai, Hare Krishna. Today we're going to talk about a different kind of possessiveness that's very favorable for devotional service on the level of Prema Bhakti. Okay, so we'll get to that later. In the meantime, we're going to start chapter 18. So this is the second chapter concerning Bhava Bhakti. And this one, yesterday we defined Bhava Bhakti with the primary and secondary characteristics. We also talked about eligibility for Bhava Bhakti. And we talked about how Bhava arises from practicing sadhana bhakti. And so now today we're going to talk about the character of a person in ecstatic love. How do we know? How can we identify who's in the level of Bhava Bhakti? What are the symptoms and signs of that? Okay. So, yeah, so by knowing these, we can understand the difference between the ecstatic love of a genuine devotee and the so-called ecstatic symptoms of a pretender. So there are some symptoms of bhava or ecstatic love which are unreliable. And these are listed in this purport to Srimad Bhagavatam 2:3-24. Can someone please read?
The Bhava stage is manifested by 8 transcendental symptoms, namely inertness, perspiration, standing of hair on end, failing in the voice, trembling, paleness of the body, tears in the eyes, and finally trance. Sometimes all the above 8 symptoms of ecstasy are limited by mundane devotees, Prakat Sahajyas, but the pseudo symptoms are at once detected when one sees the pseudo devotees addicted to so many forbidden things.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so these are the 8 ecstatic symptoms. Inertness, one becomes stunned, perspiration, the hairs stand on end, one's voice becomes choked up, there's trembling in the body, your complexion goes pale, tears in the eyes, and then trance, fall into an ecstatic trance. So these external or bodily symptoms can often be faked. They can often be people who are Prakriti Sahajas. They can just, they've mastered the art of faking ecstatic symptoms. So they can force them, they can make themselves cry. They can, anybody can just imitate a choked up voice. Anyone who's a good actor, so anyone who's, performed in dramas or who is a professional actor, they can basically make their body do any of these things. You can get yourself to turn pale just by thinking of something scary or some traumatic thing that happened to you, or, you can just make, it's like very easy to fake these things. So for us, we need to know who is actually on the level of Bhava Bhakti so that we can choose our association wisely. And if we think that if someone's showing these symptoms and they're just pretending, they can actually be a very materialistic person. Like it says here in Prabhupada's purport that often devotees or people who exhibit these symptoms of ecstasy or fake them, they're simultaneously addicted to so many forbidden things. So they may be breaking the 4 regulative principles, doing sinful activity, and then they come to the temple and do this big show just to get admiration. So we don't want to be duped by that kind of nonsense, basically. So Rupa Goswami is very kindly giving us a list of reliable symptoms of bhava, which can't be faked and also can't be concealed. So there are 9 of these, and I have the Sanskrit here that comes from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And so avyarta kalatvam, never wasting time, being always constantly engaged in devotional service. Prabhupada says he does not like to be idle, but wants service always 24 hours a day without deviation. Then 2, kshanti, that the person is tolerant and perseverant, even amid great disturbance. Virakti means detachment or indifference to the objects of sense gratification. Prabhupada writes detached from all material attraction. Then mana shunyata, pridelessness. And ashabandha, confidence in the Lord's mercy. Samutkanta, eagerness for achieving pure devotional service. It's that eagerness or greed for perfectional stage. Nama gana sadaruchi, taste for chanting the holy names of the Lord. Asaktis tad gunakyane, addiction to glorifying Krishna's qualities. Addiction, like you're so attached that you can't stop doing it. You just always want to talk about Krishna and his wonderful qualities. Pritis tad vasate stale, attachment for living in the Dham. You don't want to live anywhere else except in one of the holy dhams where Krishna performed pastimes, or else in a temple of the Lord, in a devotee community, a nice devotee community where there are senior devotees, where nice services are going on and all that. So attachment to those. Okay, so it's interesting that a lot of these have to do with attachment. So you have attachment to the Dham, attachment to glorifying Krishna's qualities, attachment to chanting the holy name. And then there's this eagerness is also like an attachment. You're attached to achieving pure loving service to the Lord. And at the same time, you are detached from sense gratification. So this detachment it's very practical. It's replaced by so many positive attachments because we need to be attached to something. That's our nature. All right, so we're going to go through these one by one and look at some examples, and particularly examples that are given in that Prabhupada gives in the Nectar of Devotion. For the first one, he doesn't give a particular example, but we have our own examples, utilizing one's time. And the prime example is Srila Prabhupada. We see that Prabhupada was, and also Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Prabhupada is more close to us. And you see how Prabhupada's daily schedule was just, it was just total. He just went from one Krishna conscious activity to the next. There was not a moment where he was doing something which wasn't directly Krishna conscious, which wasn't directly connected to the service of the Lord, to pushing forward the movement, to helping other people become Krishna conscious, and all that in so many different ways. And then Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his example is somewhat different in terms of that he spent several hours a day doing his work as a magistrate for the British court. So he had to go through cases, he had to listen to these cases and then come to a judgment. And so a lot of that was very mundane, but still the example but of course, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was very Krishna conscious even while he was doing that. But in the biography of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, we have his daily schedule. I'm sure most of you have seen Bhaktivinoda Thakur's daily schedule is something to be admired, to say the least. He really he made a whole schedule for how to utilize not waste a minute. Every minute is just planned down to the detail. And that way he was able to achieve so much. He also wrote so many books, so many songs, and he married twice. His first wife died, he married again. I think in total he had something like 10 children. So he had a lot of responsibilities as a parent. The government saw him as a very valuable person. They would call upon him to deal with sensitive situations, right? When they had that Baba Falgu Bhagavan, who was claiming to be God, they called upon him. So he had so many responsibilities and very high level things to do in addition to his family. But he still had, his sadhana was amazing. His devotional accomplishments were amazing. And it's all because he didn't waste a moment of time. Well, it's also because he was a Nitya Siddha. He was an empowered personality who descended from the spiritual world to do these things. But we can learn from his example for how to schedule our days so that even if we do have a full-time job and a big family, we can still accomplish so many things in direct devotional service. So that's a symptom of Bhava Bhakti. And so the idea is that why did Prabhupada utilize his time like that? Why did Bhaktivinoda Thakur, why was he inspired to make that tight schedule of every day? Because his love for Krishna, because the emotion, it was impelled by his ecstatic emotion for Krishna, that I just want to do things for Krishna. I want to help Krishna with his mission. I want to, save the fallen conditioned souls, because I know that's what Krishna wants. So it was all coming from a loving emotion. It wasn't just a question of discipline, self-discipline. It was impelled by his emotion for Krishna. Okay, then perseverance. And the example here given is Maharaj Parikshit. Prabhupada gives a nice definition of this in the NOD, the first sentence in this section. He says, when a person is undisturbed, even in the presence of various causes of disturbance, he is called reserved and perseverant. So it's easy to be peaceful when everything is nice in your life, right? But when there's a serious disturbance and then you're still peaceful, then that's called perseverance. And how can somebody attain that state? That even if, you know, you're going about your daily duties and all of a sudden, boom, like all of a sudden you just get cursed to die. You know, imagine one day you're going to work, or you're going to go shopping or something. You're going down to the bazaar to buy some sabji or whatever. And then all of a sudden something happens, you inadvertently offend someone and they curse you to die. And you know that you're going to die. Like, whoa, you know, would you just be totally calm about that? So most of us probably wouldn't. Most of us would be like, what? Oh my God, what am I going to do now? We'd be calling up everybody and, you know, how can I counteract this? What can I do? Please give me some mantra, give me some formula, do some puja for me, you know, like that, right? But Maharaj Parikshit, he was like, okay, sure. If that's, I accept everything as Krishna's arrangement. And in any case, I will go on thinking of him. So that's what he says here. When he's there on the bank of the Ganges, he says, I have come to the bank of the Ganges just to devote my heart and soul unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So he was already devoted to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So that just that was a constant. So please bless me, he's asking the sages, that Mother Ganges may also be pleased with me. Let the curse of the Brahman's son fall upon me. I do not mind. I only request that at the last moment of my life, all of you will kindly chant the holy name of Vishnu so that I may realize his transcendental qualities. So he didn't mind at all. Okay, let the Brahmins curse, let me die. It doesn't really matter. I was serving Krishna before, I'll serve Krishna now. I'll serve Krishna in the next life. What's the difference? So we can see that his bhava, his bhakti was at such an advanced level that the only thing that mattered was his being able to serve Krishna and remember Krishna and hear the holy names of Krishna. So as long as that was happening, then great, you know, and in fact, it facilitated even more hearing and chanting about Krishna, because now he could give up everything and just go sit by the Ganges and hear from pure devotee, Shukadeva Goswami, in the company of sages, all the pastimes of Krishna. And thanks to that, also we got the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. So so much good came from that. And he was very aware of all this. And therefore he didn't mind. Krishna's in control. Everything is good. Okay. The next one is detachment. And yeah, so this is kind of similar to Parikshit, because Parikshit did the same thing. He just immediately gave up everything. So Maharaj Bharat, he also gave up his family. He showed that he was, of course, even before he like physically left his family and went to the forest, he was already detached, because otherwise he wouldn't have been able to leave. He was a young man. It says here that he was so attracted by the beauty of the lotus feet of Krishna that even in his youthful life, he gave up all kinds of attachments to family, children, friends, and kingdom, as though they were untouchable stools. So that doesn't mean that he actually saw them as untouchable stools, but it's a way of showing how detached he was, that he didn't need to stay there. He was happy to go. And so Prabhupada goes on explaining that that a neophyte devotee must try to keep himself apart from all kinds of alluring attachments. But the real position of a mature devotee is that even in the presence of all allurements, he is not attracted. So actually, Bharat Maharaj, even while living with his family, he wasn't attracted. So then when the time came for him to leave his family, it was easier. It wasn't a problem. Okay, so that's detachment. And how could he be so detached? Because, like we were saying, because his attachment to Krishna was so strong, to chanting the holy names, to residing in a holy place, to hearing and chanting about the qualities of Krishna. So If his family was supportive for that, then great. If not, then whatever, just the main criteria for, because the devotees at the level of bhava, one's emotion, one's attachment to Krishna is so strong that just overrides any other aspect of one's life. Okay, then there's a little note on detachment here, because generally the word that we use for detachment is vairagya, renunciation, detachment. But the word that's used here is virakti. So there's a slight difference here. And would someone like to read this?
There are two types of detachment, vairagya and virakti. Before the stage of bhav, when one is still influenced by Maya, one may practice vairagya. This is a discipline where one keeps oneself forcibly practice vairagya. This is a forcibly separated from the objects of sense gratification and thus control his senses. At the stage of bhav, however, when the Maya is removed, one sees the naked form of material desire and is not illusioned. Also, the higher taste is so sweet that one loses all taste for the sense objects. Thus, his senses remain entirely controlled, even if he is directly amidst sense objects. Virakti is a superior type of detachment. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Yeah, so do you understand the difference here? So in the stage before bhava, one is still influenced by Maya. One sees material things and is actually attracted. One wants to chase after those material things by the influence of Maya. And then, but knowing intellectually or theoretically, philosophically, that this is not going to help me, like Krishna says, yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate, that these sense objects are actually sources of misery. So, okay, accepting that, I won't pursue sense objects, but I'm still attracted to sense objects, so I have to forcibly restrain myself. I have to keep myself away from those things. That's vairagya. But at the stage of bhava, then there's no more Maya. Remember, we went through that flow chart yesterday that shows that when the Shuddha Sattva potency descends into the heart of the devotee at an advanced stage of sadhana bhakti, then Krishna removes the Maya. That's the first thing Krishna does. He removes the influence of Maya. So the devotee is no longer attracted by Maya. And because also the devotee can see Maya for what it is. That's what it means here when it says the naked form of material desire. So one sees when a material, it's not that material desires never come. So let's say a material desire might come up, but he immediately sees it like disgusting, like this is not me. This is totally nothing to do with me, nothing desirable. These material desires are just things that keep us entangled in the material world for lifetimes of suffering. And so it's very clear that material desires are not desirable. They're not actual desires. They're just nonsense. They're just illusion. So because they can see that, then there's just no way they're going to pursue it at all. And at the same time, their higher taste for Krishna consciousness is so sweet that it would, in any case, it would overwhelm any residual material attraction that might be there. So in that way, so then he doesn't need to force himself to be separated from the sense objects, but he can remain totally surrounded by sense objects and be completely controlled. So that's really, virakti is really the real detachment. The other one is just kind of like self-imposed restriction, which he's hoping will lead to detachment. But sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes it's like absence makes the heart grow fonder. So even that needs to be accompanied by a strong devotional practice if it's going to be sustainable. All right, so number 4, pridelessness. Example here is King Bhagirat, that he was the emperor above all other kings, yet he developed such ecstatic love for Krishna that he became a mendicant and went out begging even to the homes of his political enemies and untouchables. He was so humble that he respectfully bowed down before them. So this is a hard thing to do, because Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that for one who has been honored, dishonor is worse than death. But this person was an emperor, not just a king, but an emperor of many kings. But when he came to the level of Bhava Bhakti, he just became a beggar, and you can imagine that going to the homes of his political enemies, he must have been insulted, but he didn't mind, because his love for Krishna was so strong that it was totally insignificant to him. Number 5, great hope, Ashabandha. Great hope is, Prabhupada says, it's like hoping against hope, which means that hoping against hope means that you consider yourself totally hopeless, but still you have hope. Even though I'm hopeless, I have hope that the Lord will be merciful. So this is exemplified by this very sweet prayer of Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami says, well, someone can read this. Go ahead. Save my voice a little bit.
I have no love for Krishna, nor for the causes of developing love of Krishna, namely hearing and chanting, and the process of bhakti yoga by which one is always thinking of Krishna and fixing his lotus feet in the heart is also lacking in me. As far as philosophical knowledge or pious works are concerned, I don't see any opportunity for me to execute such activities. But above all, I am not even born of a nice family. Therefore, I must simply pray to you, Gopijana Vallabh, Krishna, the maintainer and beloved of gopis. I simply wish and hope that some way or other I may be able to approach your lotus feet. And this hope is giving me pain, because I think myself quite incompetent to approach that transcendental goal of life. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. It reminds me, last night, yesterday evening, we were having a Bhagavad Gita class on chapter 12, texts 8 to 12. So you may be familiar with those verses. He starts off saying, Krishna starts off saying, just totally fix your mind on me without deviation, and just think of me all the time. And then he says, and if you can't do that, then practice the rules and regulations of bhakti yoga, and in that way develop a desire to attain me. And if you can't do that, then just try to do some work for me. If you can't work for me, then at least, give some donations for a charity, any random good cause out there that you think is worthy of supporting. So like that. And Rupa Goswami says, I have no love for Krishna. So he can't do the first. I'm not saying that Rupa Goswami can, but this is what he's saying. Saying, I can't fix my mind on you constantly. I have no love. So then Krishna says, well, if you can't do that, then perform bhakti yoga and develop a desire. So Rupa Goswami is saying, I have no attachment for the causes of developing love, the process, in other words, the process of bhakti yoga. So I can't think of you. I can't follow the bhakti yoga. And then he says, as far as philosophical knowledge and pious works are concerned, I can't do that either. So Krishna says, if you can't do that, then work for me. He says, I can't do that either. All right, if you can't do that, then just be pious and support some good cause, even if it's a mundane cause. So he's saying, I can't do that either. And then I'm not even born in a good family. I have absolutely no hope. Like Krishna, you were so kind in giving all these concessions, giving all these ways that somehow or other, even the lowest person can be connected with you and gradually come to, pure devotional service. But I can't start even the lowest one of those. I'm just totally unqualified in every way. But still, so even though he's seeing himself like this, still he has great hope. He says, I must simply pray to you. And I wish, with the wish and the hope that some way or other I may be able to approach your feet. Yeah, and that even that hope is giving him pain because he's thinking himself so hopeless. So it's a very desperate appeal. But this is suitable for us because in Kali Yuga, we're all basically in this situation. Kali Yuga is, we're all born in this degraded age and families which are not very exalted and with very little opportunity to engage in these activities which lead to pure devotional service. But somehow or other, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we've been connected. So that's our hope. And because Srila Prabhupada says that we should expect the Lord's mercy as a regulative principle of bhakti, then we're expecting the Lord's mercy. And but this great hope is at another level. This is at the level of Bhava Bhakti. So the level of Bhava Bhakti, then one's humility, because remember the last thing here was pridelessness. So the level of Bhava Bhakti, the person becomes so humble that even though they are highly qualified, I mean, they're already at the sadhya stage, they're already Bhava Bhakti. So they're clearly, objectively speaking, highly qualified, but they don't see themselves like that. So, and that's helpful. It's helpful because that way their bhava can quickly progress to prema, and that's why it very quickly progresses. Because in the earlier stages, the sadhana bhakti is slow because we're so proud. We become so proud. We do one little thing. We chant like one good round. Whoa, I chanted that round so attentively. Wow, that was probably better than anybody else in the temple room. We become proud about any little thing. We wake up early in the morning. Oh yeah, I woke up at 3 o'clock this morning. Everybody else slept till 3. I'm so much better. So like that, right? With any excuse, we become proud. And then, like yesterday, I went out on book distribution and we only had time to do 1 hour because all our busy schedules, but 4 of us went out. And that 1 hour, I distributed 21 books. And then the car on the way home, I was like, dang, I distributed 21 books in 1 hour. If I went for 5 hours, I could have done over 100 books. And how many did you do? Oh, you only did 7, shoot, So, and then my friend who only did 7, she's like, now don't become proud. So it's like, we become proud so quickly. It's very dangerous, actually. But that never happens to a person on the level of Bhava Bhakti. Even Rupa Goswami is saying that he is totally unqualified. So that's one way of knowing. Yes, Radha Gadadhar Prabhu.
So Mataji, this means that having this thing, great hope, for this there is this prerequisite of being extremely humble. I mean, totally, not expecting any honor. Is this the thing?
I mean, that's it. I mean, this is the example that Prabhupada gave. So apparently, yes, because it's a very humble statement, right? He says that he's totally unqualified. He has no opportunity even for pious works, what to speak of devotional service. So yeah, humility is like it keeps us safe. Because as soon as we become proud, we can commit offenses. And that if offenses are the only thing that can make us fall down from the level of Bhava Bhakti, which we'll see towards the end of this.
And Mataji, similarly, if we see that, point number 3, virakti, and then it comes point number 4, which is pridelessness.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it appears that, 3 is a requisite for point number 4, virakti. Until you don't have, virakti, you cannot become prideless.
Yeah, if you're still attached to material things and all that, you mean?
Yeah. Yes, Mataji.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're attached to material things, then you're going to be proud that I have this person doesn't. I'm wealthy, I'm well situated, like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of pride comes from material identification.
Yes, Mataji. And same goes for point number 2 and 3, that without being tolerant or perseverance, one cannot be virak from all other things that are happening. So is it the case that everything is being preceded by something which is a prerequisite for the next thing?
I'm not sure. That's not indicated here that one necessarily leads to the other. It could be to some extent. The way I see it is more that they're interconnected.
Okay.
Okay. For example, like number 6, that the person's very eager to serve the Lord faithfully. So because they're eager to serve the Lord faithfully, then they utilize every second in Krishna's service, which is number 1. Like that.
Or Mataji, it can be other side also, that because a person doesn't want to, never waste time. He has, reached such a stage, therefore he's always eager. And yeah, but of course, yeah, it can be interrelated, all the things.
Yeah, I just think they're interconnected. It's just like a bundle of character traits that come from one's
It's
love
like
for
a web
Krishna.
chain, is it?
Web chain?
It's, I mean, food web, or what I remember, the food chain, food web, whatever you say, that everyone is
Food
dependent
chain?
on others, and
It's
whatever
like
it is, I forgot the name exactly.
yeah, it's like an ecosystem.
Yeah, ecosystem. Yeah, that's the word.
Yeah, so you've got the plants and the animals, and they all depend on each other, and they need, it's an interdependent, yeah, relationship. Yeah, that's nice. It means
And
that it shows that it's actually an organic, it's natural. Anything that's natural has this quality of interdependence, interconnectivity, that it's a self-sustainable system. So these qualities actually sustain each other, and they're all underpinned by love for Krishna. Okay, you're for some reason I can't hear you.
sorry. Yeah, am I audible now?
Yes.
Yeah, one more thing I wanted to ask regarding being extremely, hopeful to, get Krishna's mercy. So many a times we see that some of the Prabhupada disciples, and their examples that, the way they passed away and the way they got mercy, even after, leaving up everything, even after leaving Bhakti, when Prabhupada went away. So, of course, they did a lot of services when the time Prabhupada was present. But many a times, personally, I feel that, Krishna's mercy is not that difficult. It's easy, they're getting them even after leaving Bhakti. So, how to, be appreciative of whatever we are getting and take it as a mercy of Krishna?
You're saying that some of Prabhupada's disciples were serving enthusiastically in Prabhupada's presence, but after Prabhupada left, they kind of like blooped, they left the movement.
Yeah, and
And
they left,
so,
and finally, the way they passed away, I mean, they left their bodies, it appears that they did at Krishna's mercy and out of nowhere. I mean, so it
right.
appears that it's not that difficult to get Krishna's mercy sometimes, especially when you see these examples. So,
I mean, but you have to look at what those devotees did
yeah.
and how much they helped Prabhupada. You see, like Prabhupada, he was one person. He was a single, like older man in a foreign country, and he needed help. And these people came and helped him. Like when the movement's going strong and somebody comes along and does some new service, starts a new project, then it expands it in a way. It's like, wow, that's good. Like that's nice. He's doing nice service. But when there's absolutely nothing and you can't do it yourself, it's kind of like if you think about like let's say something happens and you're totally destitute, you lose everything, you lose your home, your money, your job, you have no way of having money, and you're out on the street and you're starving and cold, and then somebody comes along and invites you inside and gives you a nice hot prasadam. So imagine how indebted you'll be to that person. But if you're well situated, you have your house and you have food, you have plenty of money and all that, and then somebody says, oh, can you come over to my house for lunch today? And so you go to a house, you sit in a nice warm house and eat the same food. There's a difference in the way that you experience that. The people are doing the same thing. They're just inviting you into their house and giving you a meal. But in the situation where you're totally destitute and starving, there's a very deep sense of gratitude. Like you'll never forget what that person did for you. Whereas if you're well situated, you're just like, oh, that was nice. He's a nice person, kind friend, or whatever, right? So in the same way, those devotees that helped Srila Prabhupada in the beginning, like, I'm just imagining that Srila Prabhupada was so grateful to them. And so even though they may have left, Prabhupada would never forget what those devotees did for him and how they helped him to spread the movement in the time when he really needed them the most. So that's why.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mataji.
Okay, yeah, we can't expect that we do some service now and then we leave the movement and Krishna is going to come, Prabhupada's going to come to our bed, you know, at the time of death. and we can't expect that's going to happen. But we can appreciate, we should still appreciate what these devotees did in the beginning. And also what it was so hard to do what they did in the beginning. You know, we have it easy. We just walk into the temple, beautiful deities, beautiful marble floor, Mahaprasadam is coming off the altar every few hours, you know, like it's all there. Those devotees, there was nothing. There was no temple, there were no deities, there was no, they didn't even have mridanga. You know what I mean? They didn't have anything and they didn't know anything. And there was just Prabhupada and some like tiny little storefront apartment in a filthy area of a terrible city. And that's all they had. And they built it from nothing. So even if it looks like they, I mean, what they did, not only just was it so needed by Srila Prabhupada, but it was also, I mean, it was just, they were empowered.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to the next. So number 6, eagerness for pure loving service. This is a quote from Bilva Mangala Thakur. Would someone like to read this?
Bilva Mangal Thakur in his book Bilva Mangal Thakur in his book Krishna Karnamrit, he says, I am eagerly waiting to see that boy of Vrindavan whose bodily beauty is captivating the whole universe, whose eyes are always bounded by black eyebrows and expanded like lotus petals, and who is always eagerly glancing over his devotees and therefore moving slightly here and there. His eyes are always moist, his lips are colored like copper, and through those lips there comes a sound vibration which drives one madder than a mad elephant. I want so much to see him at Vrindavan.
Nice. So this is eagerness. It's very interesting actually, because Bilva Mangala Thakur was blind. You know, he blinded himself with the hairpins. I was just telling that story yesterday. And you see in the picture here, Krishna is sitting right in front of him. But this is, I heard from Bhanu Swami that a symptom of coming to Bhava Bhakti is that you can actually see Krishna. So it seems that he's having this eagerness for pure love and service. He has seen Krishna and he wants to see him again. Gaurav Prabhu. Of course, he's blind, so how can he see Krishna? He sees him within his heart. Krishna reveals himself like he did with Narada Muni in his previous lifetime. All right, sorry, go ahead, Gaurav.
Am I audible, Mataji?
Yes.
So, Mataji, it's just a awkward question though. Just I'm asking normally, like, have you met with a person who revealed to you like he is in the stage of Bhava Bhakti or Prema Bhakti in this manner? Is it like, do you have any practical experience with meeting with a person in this level?
Sorry, can you say that again? Your voice was breaking up. I couldn't understand.
Mataji, it's a little awkward question I want to ask. Like, have you met with some person who has expressed that he is on the level of Bhava Bhakti or Prema Bhakti genuinely?
Nobody's going to express that, Prabhu. Nobody's going to walk up and be like, you know what? I think I'm on the level of Bhava Bhakti. Because look, that prayer by Rupa Goswami, he's on the level of Bhava Bhakti and he's thinking that he's totally hopeless. So that's why these symptoms are given. That we can know who's on the level of Bhava Bhakti by observing these symptoms. When we see somebody that is always using every second of their day in Krishna's service, has no attraction to doing something else. They're not interested in movies, they're not interested in going to restaurants, they're not interested in talking about mundane topics or anything. And whenever there's some even major tragedy in their life, they're always very calm, cool-headed, because they accept it all as Krishna's mercy. That they're very humble, they never want any respect, even if they do something great. and they don't need to be appreciated, although devotees will appreciate them, but they're not doing it for that. And they know that Krishna is always going to be merciful. They're very eager to serve Krishna, to see Krishna, and they're attached to chanting the holy names, to talking about Krishna, and living in a holy place. So these are some external, these are observable. That's the whole point, is that these are observable symptoms that can't be faked. You know, like you can't fake using your time every 24 hours a day in Krishna service. Either you're doing it or you're not doing it. You can't fake it or conceal it, right? So that's one of the best ones, because that's very easy to observe. And it's very hard. Like if someone who doesn't have attraction to Krishna and who is attracted to Maya, then they're not going to be able to do this, at least not for very long. They might be able to push themselves, you know, for a week or something, maybe a month, but after they're going to end up crashing. Okay. All right. Number 7, taste for chanting the holy names. And then there's this quote. This is about Srimati Radharani. O Lord Govinda, the girl who is the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, Srimati Radharani, is now shedding tears, and she is anxiously chanting your holy name, Krishna, Krishna. So we hear this about, if you read the 10th canto or Krishna book, how when Krishna left the rasa dance, then the gopis were always chanting names of Krishna, talking about Krishna, acting out the pastimes of Krishna. You know, they could do nothing but just think about Krishna intensely. Then eagerness to describe the glories of the Lord. This is again Bilvamangala Thakur. He says, what shall I do for Krishna, who is pleasing beyond all pleasurable conceptions, and who is naughtier than all restless boys? The idea of Krishna's beautiful activities is attracting my heart, and I do not know what I can do. So he's so attracted by the qualities of Krishna that he can't stop talking about them, and he's just overwhelmed by thinking about them. And the last one, attraction for living in a place of the Lord's pastimes, from Padiavali. So this is also Rupa Goswami. In this place, the son of Maharaj Nanda used to live with his father, who was king of the cowherd men. In this place, Lord Krishna broke the cart in which the Shakatasura demon was concealed. At this place, Damodar, who can cut the knot of our material existence, was tied up by his mother Yashoda. So this is the mood of going to holy places, is that we go to the different sites where Krishna did particular activities, and we stop and hear about that activity and reflect on that activity, and that way we can try to reenact within our minds all these beautiful pastimes of Krishna while we're in the place where he actually performed the pastime. So because we're attached to hearing about Krishna's pastimes, then and we hear those from a devotee. So these are two very important processes of devotional service that we perform while living in the Dham. So we want to live in the Dham or live in a temple. Why? Because it's a place where there are pure devotees who are always speaking about Krishna's pastimes, and they can bring those pastimes to life for us. You know, sometimes you read Krishna book, or you read 10th canto Srimad Bhagavatam by yourself, and it's like you learn about Krishna's pastimes. You know what the pastime is, and you can repeat it. You can tell the story to someone else. Maybe you tell the story to your children or something like that. But then when you hear it from a very pure devotee, it's like that pastime really comes to life for you. You know, you don't just hear it. It's not just intellectual. It's not, you don't just know what Krishna did, but you feel it. You know, you actually feel like the intensity of it. You feel the emotions of the other devotees who are in the pastime. And yeah, so this is what a devotee at the stage of Bhava is always hankering for, that feeling. And because they have feeling, then they can also invoke that in us. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Okay, so those are the 9 reliable, observable characteristics of a person in ecstatic love or Bhava Bhakti. So then remember when we did chapter 13, and all of you did a lot of work on this because that was a section where you gave these beautiful presentations about the 5 potent processes. So the very first paragraph of chapter 13, there's this quote. Go ahead and read it, someone.
Rupa Goswami has stated the 5 kinds of devotion activities, namely residing in Mathura, worshipping the deity of the Lord, reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, serving a devotee, and chanting the Hare Krishna mantra are so potent that a small attachment to any of these 5 items can arouse devotional ecstasy even in a neophyte. NOD chapter 13. Hare Krishna.
All right. So yeah, when I read that, I was thinking, wow, even a little attachment to any of these five items can arouse devotional ecstasy, which means Bhava Bhakti. And that's what Rupa Goswami says here. So these are some verses straight from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. The inconceivable power of these extraordinary 5 angas is such that it will manifest the state of bhava and its object Krishna at the same time. In some of the verses quoted from the scriptures, material results are attributed to the angas for attracting, in order to attract people possessing material consciousness. However, the main result of these angas is rati or bhava. So he's confirming that these 5 potent processes, the main result is that they invoke bhava. Okay, so then how do they do that? I put a little thought into this because I was curious as to the connection between these 5 angas, the 5 potent processes, and Bhava Bhakti, and these observable characteristics of Bhava Bhakti. So if we look at deity worship, what was given there in chapter 13 was this quote by Rupa Goswami. If you want to hold on to your attachments to, society, friendship, and love, don't go to Vrindavan, to the bank of the Yamuna at Keshigat, and see the smiling face of Govinda in his 3-fold bending form playing the flute. Why? Because you'll get free from all your material attraction if you see his beautiful face. So that's number 3 out of this list of 9. Being free, detached, always detached from material attraction. And then hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. It said there in chapter 13 that by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, you become indifferent to Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. And that's one of the characteristics of pure devotional service, which manifests at the level of Bhava Bhakti, is Moksha Laguta Krit, which means that it derides the conception of liberation. So that's manifest at the Bhava stage. So hearing Srimad Bhagavatam brings one to that Bhava. And also out of this list of 9, you could relate number 5, confident of the Lord's mercy. Because when you hear Srimad Bhagavatam, you hear how Krishna is so merciful, how he gives mercy even to the demons that he kills, that the demons get liberation. And so a tiny little drop of maternal affection for Krishna, then he promotes her to Goloka to become a nurse there. And so you're thinking, if he does that with Putana, then what will he do for me, who's chanting his names, who's worshiping him, who's trying to, serve his pure devotee? We have to be confident of the Lord's mercy. And then number 8, eager to describe the Lord's qualities. Because when we hear Srimad Bhagavatam, we hear about Krishna's qualities. And then when we hear them, we become captivated by them. And we want to talk about them. We want to tell other people about them. We want to tell people about Krishna. So that's number 8, always eager to describe the transcendental qualities of the Lord. Then association with devotees. By association, with advanced devotees, we get their qualities just by the association. That's it's talked about earlier in the Nectar of Devotion, that just as a crystal reflects the color of whatever is near it. So in the same way, when we're near advanced devotees, then their qualities are reflected in us, and we develop those qualities. So which qualities do we develop? Basically all these 9 qualities. But specifically, you could say their intense eagerness for loving service is something that you can feel yourself, like you can, when you're with an advanced devotee and they're always engaged in service, then you also get that eagerness. I also want to serve Krishna. I want to do what they're doing. I want to be like them. And then because when you're with them, they're going to engage you in service, then you end up not wasting a moment. So you learn those things from them. And of course, chanting the holy names. By chanting the holy names, we develop a taste for chanting the holy names, which is number 7. And we also become humble, because in order to keep chanting the holy names, then we need to have this quality of Trinadapi, Sunichena, Tarori, Vasishna, Amanina, Manadena, Kirtaniya, Sadahari. So that's not desiring any respect or honor. That's pridelessness. Number 4. Okay, and then residing in a holy place. When we live in a holy place, then we get all these realizations of Krishna in the holy place. And so number 9, we become attached. We become very pleased to live in the Dham. So all of these 5 potent processes, if we perform them properly, then they'll lead us to the various aspects of Bhava Bhakti. Aradi Gadadhar Prabhu.
Yeah, Mataji, 2 things. One is like in chanting the holy names, if there is this Trinadapi Sunichena mentioned, shouldn't number 2 also come here? That, Taro Riva Shaishno, you're more tolerant than a tree.
Right, good. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because I saw that number 2 is not coming anywhere in this,
Number 2 is not anywhere. Okay, we're going to put it right here, right now.
Yeah.
Good. Now we're covered.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll do it like this. Nadapisanichena. Taror Iva Vishnu. Good.
Yes, Mataji. Thank you.
Tolerant and perseverant. Okay. Yeah, so that should reaffirm our conviction and our inspiration to follow these, to practice these 5 potent processes. Attachment to Krishna at the level of Bhava Bhakti is very rare. Yeah, Prabhupada devotes a few long paragraphs to talking about how people who are still interested in material enjoyment, mental speculators, and even many liberated people cannot attain this level of Bhava Bhakti. It's very confidentially kept by Krishna and bestowed only upon pure devotees. Then he raises a question here. So what about the seeming ecstatic symptoms that appear in non-devotees or beginners? Because sometimes we see this. So there's a few different explanations for this. One is that they may just be totally pretending that although it's not, and then Prabhupada makes a statement that although this is not real attachment because it's just totally imitation, but this imitative attachment may give the pretender hope that he will eventually rise to the actual platform of pure devotional service. And there's a funny story that one time, the holiday Halloween in America? They have in America on October 31st, they have this holiday. It's called Halloween. And it's a day when everybody like dresses up in some costume. Usually they dress up as like ghosts and witches and skeletons and things like that, like scary things. But sometimes they just dress up as just something different, anything, they might dress up as a duck or a space alien or something like that, a robot or something. So just like anything. And so and then they go out on the street and they basically like get drunk and get crazy and things. So, or little kids dress up and they go door to door and they collect treats like candy and sweets like that, chocolates and things. Anyways, so the devotees were on Harinam because a lot of people are out on Halloween night. The whole thing happens at night. The devotees are out doing Harinam Sankirtan. And there were these two people, these two young men who were dressed up as brahmacharis. That was their Halloween costume. So they're wearing orange robes, and they had a thing on their head that was like it covered their hair, and it was just bald. It was a mask thing. It was a thing that you put over the top of your head that makes it look like you're bald. So they were wearing the bald thing, and then they had the orange robes, and they had tambourines, and they were just going around like, dressed up as Hare Krishnas. So they had no real interest in the Hare Krishnas, I guess. I mean, they weren't wanting to be devotees, and they were just probably intoxicated. Anyway, so then the Harinam came through, and when these two like Halloween dress up characters as devotees saw the actual devotees, they were like, hey, that's our people. So then they joined the Harinam, and then they start dancing, and they're getting into it, and they follow the devotees all the way back to the temple, and then they start talking to the devotees, and they ended up becoming devotees. So it's just kind of a funny story. It's not totally this, but it's kind of this, that Prabhupada said, imitation of a good thing is a good thing. So although we don't encourage, prakriti sahajya kind of imitation, but it's not totally bad. It's not proper, but some good can come out of it, because like he's saying here, that the person who's pretending may actually have hope that he can eventually come to that stage. So, yeah. All right. And then another reason why these ecstatic symptoms may appear in non-devotees or beginners is that or not so much in non-devotees in this case, but more like beginners, is that they may be experiencing some genuine ecstasy due to spiritual advancement made in a previous life. So I was in London one time, and it was Ratha Yatra, okay? So the Ratha Yatra, Jagannath Ratha Yatra carts going down the street, ecstatic kirtan. And then there was this woman who was just, a non-devotee, and she was just standing there. She was out like, shopping on the street, or, whatever. She didn't even know that it was Ratha Yatra day. She just happened to be there, so-called happened to be there. And the Ratha Yatra passed. So when she looked at Lord Jagannath, she told the devotees later, because she couldn't understand what happened. And so she went to the temple later and asked the devotees, why did this happen? What she said was that when she looked at the car, because she stopped, it's something, to look at. Jagannath Ratha Yatra car, it's like, whoa, what's that? So she looked, and when she saw Jagannath, when she saw his smiling face, she said tears shot out of her eyes, like a syringe, like not just down the cheeks, but zoom, like shot out like a squirt gun. And she didn't know what hit her, she said, what was that? So then what the devotee told her was that you must have some connection with this from a previous life, that you've experienced this before. And it was triggering a remembrance of your previous practice, and it was generating this ecstasy. So yeah, so this may happen, that somebody looks like a beginner, but they're not actually a beginner, because we're all coming from different starting points. And a good example of this is Gaur Govinda Maharaj, because when Gaur Govinda Maharaj, he was born in a Vaishnava family. He grew up doing, Vaishnava bhajan from the day, from his early life. And then he left his family to just totally devote himself to the service of Krishna. And he ended up coming to Vrindavan. And then, so he had already practiced devotional service his whole life, given up his family, gone to Vrindavan, and then he met Prabhupada. So, he was very attached to Srila Prabhupada, and he instantly started doing the whole program of, ISKCON sadhana. And within a very, very short time, he got initiated, and he got initiated first and second at the same time. And I think it was just a matter of like a few days or weeks later, he was going to get sannyas. He was on the he was, the plan was that he would take sannyas with some other devotees who were taking sannyas. So then one of Srila Prabhupada's sannyasi's disciples came to talk to Prabhupada and said, Srila Prabhupada, there must be some mistake here. This person's name is on the list for sannyas initiation, but he's just a new man. And then Prabhupada said, he said, how are you calling him a new man? He's not a new man, you are the new man. So from their perspective, they had been practicing Krishna consciousness for, 7-8 years already. And this person just joined like, some weeks ago. So they're thinking he's the new man. Prabhupada's saying, no, you're the new man. So yeah, so we're all coming at different starting points, and someone may be apparently new in this lifetime, but they may very quickly experience genuine ecstasy due to what they did in past lifetimes. I'll get back to this slide, but the example of this is Vritrasura that's given in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. That Vritrasura was apparently a demon, but he was actually Chitraketu, who was a devotee. And so in his lifetime as Vritrasura, he never performed any sadhana bhakti. He wasn't chanting 16 rounds. He wasn't worshiping the deity. He did nothing. But it says that, but then just towards the end of his life, he was offering these ecstatic prayers. Like the prayers of Vritrasura, some of the most exalted, purely devotional prayers in the whole Bhagavatam. And they came from a demon, so-called demon. But see, he wasn't actually a demon. So what Rupa Goswami says is that Bhava sometimes appears suddenly in a person without performance of sadhana, or even without mercy and without scriptural knowledge. It should be inferred that in a previous life, some obstacle interrupted that person's skillful sadhana, and in this life, the obstacle was finally removed. So with Vritrasura, he was a devotee previously, but there was some obstacle that he insulted Parvati and she cursed him. So he had to take birth as a demon, but then the experience of being a demon purified him of the offense that he made. And so as soon as the offense was counteracted, then his love for Krishna manifested in a beautiful way. Aradhya Gadadhar?
Yeah, Mataji, like here it is mentioned that there might be some obstacle in the previous life, and now that obstacle has been removed, and therefore there is this exhibition of bhava. But many times we see that there are some examples, especially during Prabhupada times, that they just saw Prabhupada, either at the airport first time and out of nowhere, and just they couldn't stop, check their tears. Or we see the example of Evelyn Ballroom when many people started crying. So if we consider this thing as the case with them also, that the obstacle has finally been removed, then they should have stayed in bhakti. They shouldn't have just come for a one day, cried and then again went away. So how do we understand that thing?
Yeah, so then it's not the case for everybody. That's why we need to look at these other two possibilities. So the third category here is that they may be feeling the influence of that advanced devotee's ecstasy. So the ecstasy is not their own ecstasy, but it's the reflection of the ecstasy that a pure devotee has, that they're associating with. And this takes two forms. One is reflective ecstasy, which is called in Sanskrit pratibimba ratyabhas, and shadow ecstasy, chaya ratyabhas. So just like we have, when you're chanting the holy name, but it's not the pure holy name, it's nam abhas. It's just the reflection, it's just the shadow. It's a semblance, that's what he says. It's a semblance of the holy name. It's not the real full deal. So in the same way, someone may be experiencing ecstasy that looks like bhava, but it's not really ecstasy. They're not actually on the stage of ecstatic love. They don't have rati. It's just rati abhas. It's a semblance of it.
And so what's the difference between this reflective ecstasy and shadow ecstasy?
Yes, I'm going to answer that question right now. So reflective ecstasy, this is what it says from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. When there are apparent qualities of rati or bhava bhakti, attachment. accompanied by desires for enjoyment and liberation, it is called pratibimba ratya abhas. So that means that the person, they're still very much attached to material enjoyment. They're basically a materialistic person. Either they want enjoyment or they want liberation, which we discussed before. They're both basically material desires. But at the same time, there are apparent qualities of Bhava Bhakti. There's apparent symptoms of Bhava Bhakti manifesting. Then pratibimba means reflective. So it's reflecting off, they're getting the reflection from the pure devotee. Just like you see in the picture, there's the moon and then the reflection of the moon on the water. So the moon's not actually on the water. The moon is only in the sky, but it looks like it's on the water. So this is only apparent. And this is the quote from NOD. Srila Prabhupada says, simply by the association of such pure devotees, the moon-like rays from their hearts reflect on him, and by the influence of the pure devotees, he may show some likeness of attachment. So it's that, and you may have experienced it, you know, sometimes when you're with a very senior devotee and that devotee is leading kirtan, you get so into the kirtan. You may have an ecstatic experience. You may even have a vision of Krishna's pastimes or something, you know, like something amazing happens, just like, whoa, what was that? Right? And then the next day you go to a kirtan and you try to do your own kirtan and it's just like, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. You know, it's like it's not the same. And you're not tasting this, you're not experiencing the same thing. Or yeah, I mean, there's just many ways that can manifest. So that's, we're having an experience of ecstasy, but it's not our own ecstasy. It's that person's ecstasy that's reflecting on us and we're feeling their ecstasy. That's what's happening. But then it says that even this is so powerful that it awards the goals of enjoyment and liberation. So these materialistic people, when they experience that ecstasy, they get all their material desires fulfilled. They get even liberation. But the ecstasy itself is flickering. So just like the moon reflected on the water in the picture, it's flickering and it's blurry. So you see how it's all blurry and it only remains for some time. When the moon goes down, that reflection is gone, but the moon still exists in its full completeness somewhere else. Okay, so when that devotee comes to the temple and does a seminar and does classes and kirtans, we're ecstatic, we're enthused, we're enlivened, we love being a devotee, we're so happy, we don't want to do anything else but serve Krishna. And then the devotee goes away and we're like, okay, now what am I going to do? Right? Okay. So this is an example that this is actually one of our Harinams. We had this amazing Harinam in Gainesville, Florida on Nityananda's appearance day. And we went downtown at night and all these, Gainesville is a college town. There's like 40,000 students. Like the city is mainly made of students. So this is out the Saturday night outside of a nightclub downtown. And these kids are all lining up to go into this nightclub to drink and smoke and be crazy. But the Harinam passed through and this one boy, he just like got into ecstasy. You can see like he's just like Krishna. And the other students are looking at him like, whoa, what is he experiencing? So this is an example of reflective ecstasy, that there must have been one devotee in that group that was a very advanced devotee that was chanting very purely and it entered this boy's heart and it shone brilliantly for some time. And then of course the Harinam passed through and then he goes back to his friends and goes into the nightclub. But he had an experience. Okay. All right, so that was reflective ecstasy. Now shadow ecstasy. Rupa Goswami says, that which has some similarity to real rati, which possesses a small amount of interest in the Lord, which is unstable and which destroys suffering, is called chaya ratya abhas. So this one is a little higher because there's actually an interest in the Lord. So this is not going to happen in a complete like materialistic person. Like the person's not going to feel this and then go back into the nightclub, but they may continue practicing devotional service, but you know, it won't be exactly, not at the same level of ecstasy. So yeah, because of the slight attraction to the Lord, even out of mundane curiosity, there'll be slight symptoms similar to those of real rati. So it's a little bit closer to real rati or real bhava than the other one. But he says that shadow ecstasy appears sometimes even in ignorant people by a combination of performing actions dear to the Lord. So in this case, the person is kind of ignorant, but they get, somehow they're engaged in the process of bhakti. They do some service, maybe like agyata sukriti. So they happen to see the festival of the Lord, like that woman who saw Ratha Yatra could be an example of that. Or they go to the Dham. So, you know, materialistic person goes to, like, for example, you know, Yadu Bar Prabhu and Vishaka Devi, his wife, that made the movie, Hare Krishna, the movie, the mantra, the mission, and the man who started it all. So they were, Vishaka tells her story that she was a complete atheist before, and but she was into photography. And so they wanted to photograph an Indian village. They want to do like a photographic essay, like a photographic project on Indian village life. So they came to India with all their cameras and everything. And then they were in Mumbai, and they saw some Westerners on the street, which was rare for India at that time. This is way back in like the early 70s, very early 70s maybe. So they saw some young Americans, and they started talking, and they said, oh yeah, we're staying here. Why don't you can come over and, you know, hang out with us. So they went, and then they met Prabhupada, and Prabhupada talked to them. They said, we're just here. We just want to take pictures of Indian village life. And he said, oh, if you want to do that, then the best Indian village is Vrindavan. You should go to Vrindavan and take pictures of Vrindavan. They didn't even know what Vrindavan was. They didn't know who Krishna was. They knew nothing about anything. They didn't believe in God. But on Prabhupada's recommendation, they went to Vrindavan, and they started taking pictures of the Brajabasis and the temples, and, you know, just Vrindavan scenery and everything. And it totally transformed their hearts, because the power of the Dham. So they felt this ecstasy. She said that they felt ecstasy there in Vrindavan, even though they were atheists. They didn't know why they were feeling so blissful. And then later they met the devotees again, and they started to understand, and they gradually became devotees. She said she was already living in the ashram, and she was still an atheist. She still wasn't quite convinced that God exists, but eventually she surrendered. But so this shows that how one of these things, like residing in the Dham, associated with devotees, appears only with great good fortune, and eventually bestows auspiciousness to those people. So we see how in this case it did. Eventually, it took some time, maybe some months, but she became a devotee. Whereas the previous one, the boy heard the Harinam, he felt some ecstasy, but he went to the nightclub, and we never saw him again. So this is more potent. And that's, this is what it says here, that reflective ecstasy is more bright and clear. So like with that boy in Harinam, you can see it. He's just like very visually, like you can see that he's feeling ecstasy. But shadow ecstasy is more likely to lead one to rise to the platform of actual pure devotional service. And therefore the shadow one is called para, or transcendental. You can see here in this picture that the reflection on the water is more clear, but the shadow is bigger. So it's just kind of a cool correlation to what Rupa Goswami is saying here. Okay. So by the great mercy of a dear devotee of the Lord, the semblance of Bhava, so semblance of Bhava means that Ratyabhas. Ratyabhas. The Ratyabhas can actually become real Rati, or the semblance of Bhava can become real Bhava by the mercy of a devotee. So that's like the moon. The moon starts off small, and then it's gradually waxing until it becomes the full moon. But then he says, but by offending that devotee, even the best Bhava Abbas gradually wanes to nil, just as the full moon in the sky gradually wanes. So we meet a devotee, we get the mercy of the devotee, we get some reflective ecstasy, some experience of ecstatic bliss by being with that devotee, and then that becomes like a full moon. But if we then offend that devotee due to our ignorance, then it fades away to nothing again. And then for one who actually, even so that we were talking about Bhava Abhas, but now we're talking about somebody who actually has real Bhava, somebody who is actually themselves on the level of Bhava Bhakti, that if they offend a dear devotee of the Lord, then even that real Bhava will be destroyed if the offense is grave. If the offense is medium, then their Bhava, their real Bhava, will turn into Bhava Abhas. And if the offense is slight, then the Bhava will become an inferior type of Bhava. And we have an example here. I have a note. Let me just see this. How do you make this happen? Oops. There you go. Yeah, so from Vishmalas Chakravarti Thakur's comment on this verse, he says that Bhava will be destroyed by aparad to the dearest devotees of Krishna. An example is Dvavida, the monkey, Dvavida gorilla from the Krishna book. He was a follower of Ram. He used to be a devotee of Lord Ramachandra, but then he offended Lakshman. And so his Bhav, he was on the level of Bhava Bhakti in his devotion to Ram, but due to an offense to Lakshman, then his Bhava disappeared. And then, yeah. Okay. Parama Karuna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Pranam. Mataji, just want to ask you one question that we hear usually that bhakti, there's no loss or diminution. So in case of Vaishnava aparad, is it a loss or is it more like a delay in that realization that the person is having? So for example, in this case, you are saying the person goes down from the stage of bhava. That sounds like he lost his credits of bhakti. Or is it more like some sort of a delay? Like for some time he does not realize what he used to realize.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't lose the credit for all the devotional service that he's done, but his because Bhava is emotion, his feelings become less intense. You know, those emotions for Krishna kind of like fade away. And then when that fades too much, then his feelings for the material things start to awaken again. But because the devotional credits are never lost, if he, recognizes his offense and, develops a repentant mood and then takes steps to rectify, like goes and apologizes and offers service to the devotee he offended, like that, then he can be reinstated. And when he comes back, then he'll come back at the same level where he was. He won't have to work his way up the ladder again.
Understood, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, so it sort of gets frozen in place and then the feeling goes down, but he can come back. Okay. Yeah, so this is a good lesson for us to not criticize devotees, even if they have apparent faults. And Rupa Goswami says these statements that if some apparent fault is seen in a person who has developed real bhava, one should not be hostile to that person because he has accomplished the goal in all respects. He's already on the level of sadhya. So yeah, it's said that even at the bhava stage, there are still some slight impurities. So due to those impurities, a person on the level of bhava may commit an offense. And due to those impurities, someone else may find fault in a person on the level of bhava. But we shouldn't do so. A person who is dedicated completely to the Lord may show externally some serious contamination, even though like internally they're pure. The full moon, though marked by the figure of a rabbit, is never overcome by darkness. You see here the rabbit on the moon, his ears are up here on the upper right, and then his head. That's an actual picture of the moon. You can see the rabbit. So even though that dark mark of the rabbit is there, but still it doesn't impede the diffusion of moonlight. And Prabhupada talks about that in his purport to Bhagavad Gita 9:30, right? Apichat Sudaracharo. Okay, so that, yeah, that's the end of the chapter on, oh, we got behind time. I wasn't paying attention to time today. All right, so that concludes our study of Bhava Bhakti, the third wave. Aradhi Gadadhar Prabhu.
Yeah, Mataji. Mataji, like, of course, we do hear that the potency of Vaishnava aparadh, and the higher the devotee, the dangerous it can be. But I know some of
Ooh, your voice
my
is breaking up now.
friends, all them, I'm not qualified, but I do see that they are quite advanced in Hare Krishna.
Yeah, you said that you have, some devotees who are very advanced, and what?
And yeah, I know some of my friends who might be very advanced as per what I can perceive them. So am I audible now? Is my voice coming fine?
Yes, it's good.
Yeah. So, but somehow the nature is such that it just I mean, test the tolerance level. I mean, the way they act, the way they behave, out of their nature or the way they have grown up. It just really tests the the tolerance level, especially for me. And I feel some you know that there are some people who just they've been brought us up like this thing, that although they have natural affection towards Krishna, and they might be really an advanced stage, but somehow the way they have been brought up, that no matter of etiquette of being sensitive towards other people, they lack
Yeah.
that thing. And sometimes it's really test your tolerance level. So how to, I mean, be I
Yeah.
mean, reserved in that time also, and not talk in a very imprudent manner with them.
Yeah, I think I'm like that myself, that I'm a little insensitive to people's feelings and I annoy people sometimes, or I'm unnecessarily harsh or something. So how to deal with a person like that? You should ask the devotees that associate with me. How they deal with me. Sometimes they yell at me. So someone slammed the door in my face recently. Yeah, I mean, we could just take it. One way that you could take it is that this is just, how like when you go to Vrindavan, it's the holy Dham, it's totally pure. It's not different from the spiritual world, right? But still, when you're in Vrindavan, there's so many things that just are very irritating. Like the crowds and the noise and the pollution and the smell, like, there's bad smells and garbage and all those things. But still you go to Vrindavan. And somehow or other, despite all that, you still have a very transcendental time in Vrindavan, right? So it's the same thing. This devotee is very advanced, and maybe they're doing all these 9 things that are characteristics of one in ecstatic love. But there's some things in their character that are irritating. It's kind of like analogous to like the pollution or the noises or the things there in Vrindavan Dham. So it's almost like, so if we, the devotees asked Prabhupada one time about Vrindavan. I'm just going along with this analogy now. That Prabhupada, if this is the spiritual world, then why is it so, polluted, and why is it the way it is? And Srila Prabhupada said that it's a covering, it's a Yogamaya covering in order to prevent unqualified people from actually entering the Dham. So those things are like hurdles that we need to jump over in order to be able to actually enter into the Dham. And if we're very faithful, if we have strong faith in the holy Dham, according to scripture, then we won't be disturbed by those things. We'll understand that they're just superficial and that's not the real Dham. It's just a material covering. So in the same way, in the personality of a devotee, we know that they're a very advanced devotee, that their heart's very pure. So the way we can see it is that this harshness or heaviness or, whatever it is that the devotee is doing that you think is, not very pleasing. It's just something that is there to prevent people who don't have faith in the personality of that devotee from getting too close. But if we really have faith in the devotee, then we'll be able to overlook those things, understanding that that's not the real person. It's just a covering. It's not the real person. So we can look through it and actually associate with the real person underneath the covering and just ignore those things. But it requires faith and it requires some spiritual vision. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, thank you, Mataji.
Okay, shall we move on then to Prema Bhakti? Let's do it. Okay, chapter 19. This is the fourth and the last wave of the Eastern Ocean. Devotional service and pure love of God. We're going to find out the definition of Prema Bhakti and how to attain Prema Bhakti. And we're going to see how the development of Prema Bhakti is a gradual evolution, beginning with Shraddha or faith. So that's nice. We just had this discussion about having faith in Vaishnavas, having faith in the Holy Dham, because it's all coming from faith. All right. So there are a few definitions of Prema Bhakti that are given in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. One is this from the Narada Pancharatra. When lust is completely transferred to the Supreme Godhead and the concept of kinship is completely reposed in him, such is accepted as pure love of God. And then the one that's actually given by Rupa Goswami is here. This is the first verse of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. When that bhava softens the heart completely, one becomes endowed with a great feeling of possessiveness in relation to the Lord and becomes very much condensed and intensified. It is called prema, or love of Godhead by learned scholars. So here we also have the primary and secondary characteristics of bhava, just like we had with devotional service and with, prema, with bhava. So the Swarab Lakshana, the main quality of prema is that it's condensed nature, Sandratma. Because remember, we're talking about bhava, that bhava is just the preliminary stage of prema, just like the sun rays are telling you that the sun is going to rise. So when that preliminary, it's just a preliminary stage, but when that becomes intensified, when it becomes concentrated, when the sun actually rises, then the light becomes a lot more intense. Like when you're watching the sunrise, you can stare at it and you see the rays coming and you can still stare at it. But as soon as the sun rises, you can't stare at it anymore. It's like going to burn your eyes out. You can look at it for like 3 seconds and then you just like close your eyes quick and you're seeing all these black spots in front of your closed eyes, right? It's too much. You can't look at it. So it's like that. It's so intense, prema. It's bhava intensified. That's its primary quality. And then the other two qualities here are secondary. So the other two qualities are that the heart is softened completely. In bhava, it's softened, but in prema, it's softened completely. It's completely melted. It's not just soft butter, it's liquid butter. And then the other quality is this mamata, this possessiveness, that Krishna is mine. Krishna is my lover. Krishna is my friend. Krishna is my son. Krishna is mine. Okay. All right, let's see. Would someone like to read this here?
In prema, the heart
Go ahead.
Swantaha becomes extremely soft, samanyan, masranita, in comparison to the preliminary condition of bhava, in which the heart becomes soft. Moreover, prema is condensed bliss, the highest state of bliss, compared to a preliminary state of bhava, which has preliminary appearance of bliss. Prema also has the extreme possessiveness of Krishna. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.4.2, prema is defined by...
Oh, I think we lost you. Someone else want to take over here?
Prema is
Prema
defined
is
by
defined
Bhishma, Prahlad, Uddhava, and Narada as that bhava which has possessiveness related to Vishnu or any other form of the Lord and to no one else.
Yeah, so these authorities, Bhishma, Prahlad, Uddhava, Narada, they give a lot of attention to the mamata aspect, the possessiveness. And it's possessiveness of Vishnu and no one else. Like you don't think, because now we have this, this person is my husband, my wife, my children, my uncle, my mother, my father, my auntie, you know, like we have all these, my friend, my teacher, my student, we have possessiveness over people. But when we come to the stage of prema, possessiveness is to Krishna and no one else. Aradi Gadadhar Prabhu.
Yeah, Mataji, regarding this possessiveness at prema, I wanted to talk about. Like if we compare Chandravali and Srimati Radharani, so we do hear that this sense of possessiveness in Radharani, because I guess she's from the left wing, but I guess this is not present in Chandravali. Like this is what we hear, the actual comparison between Srimati Radharani and Chandravali. So isn't Chandravali also at Prema Bhav, but she still doesn't have that possessiveness stage as Srimati Radharani has?
She still has possessiveness. I mean, she still would say that Krishna is my lover, right? She still say that Krishna is my lover, just that her mood is different from Radharani and that she's submissive to Krishna. So when Krishna wants to go off and go somewhere else, she doesn't get upset about it. She always accepts Krishna. She's always submissive to him. Whereas Radharani, she gets this man mood, you know, she becomes angry. She doesn't want to talk to him. She tells him to go away. But they both,
But if you have,
yeah.
I mean, if you have the possessiveness quality, I mean, you won't be happy if your lover goes to someone else, or like you were saying about Chandravali, that she's okay if Krishna goes somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, maybe her possessiveness is not so strong as Radharani's, but it's not that she doesn't have possessiveness. She's also on the level of prema.
Okay, thank you.
Of course, no one's going to be, no one's prema is going to be so exalted as Radharani's. Okay, so here we have the primary trait of prema, that it's intensified, bhava. Bhava saeva sandratma, the intensified, fully mature state of bhava. When one's desire to love Krishna in one's particular relationship becomes intensified, this is known as pure love of Godhead. And the secondary traits are these. It softens the heart completely. Whereas bhava softens the heart, this softens the heart completely. And then,
show the previous slide. Okay.
What's that?
The previous slide, can I please play again?
Yeah. Do you want to ask something?
Oh, I was not able to read it.
Oh, sorry. I just read it really quickly. I'm worrying about the time. Okay. Are you good? Okay. So then the secondary traits are it softens the heart completely, and it has this highly possessive ownership of Sri Krishna. So it's not just mamatva, it's mamatva ati shayankita. It's a very strong sense of possessiveness. All right, so how to get prema? Rupa Goswami says, this prema for the Lord has two types. So two ways to get it, basically. These two types are different according to the way that you get it. One is that it arises from bhava, and the other is that it arises from mercy. So arising from bhava, within that, there are two types. It says here, by the evolution of bhava, either bhava of Vaidhi Bhakti with an attachment to Krishna's majesty, or the bhava of Raganuga Bhakti with an attachment to Krishna's sweetness. So this both Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti can lead to bhava. So when we were talking about how by performing Vaidhi Bhakti, you come to Raganuga Bhakti, okay? But you may not necessarily come to Raganuga Bhakti, because remember, Raganuga Bhakti means you're following in the wake of a Ragatmika Bhakta, which has to be a resident of Vrindavan. So Raganuga Bhakti is only for those who have the Vrindavan mood. But it's not that only Vrajvasis have prema. The Dwarkavasis, Mathuravasis, they also have prema. But they come to their position through Vaidhi Bhakti. So from Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, they come to a Vaidhi influenced Bhava Bhakti, or Bhava Bhakti with a attachment to Krishna's majesty. We're going to analyze this. All right, yeah, so prema that comes from regulative sadhana, the one is that from Vaidhi sadhana, you get a Vaidhi derived bhava, and you get a Vaidhi influenced prema. So that prema is different from the prema that's generated through Raganuga. It's called Mahatmya Gyan Prema, which means that you have love for Krishna, but there's also knowledge that he's God. So it's mixed with awe and reverence. And that will take you to Vaikuntha, to Dwarka. The Vaikuntha is mainly awe and reverence. Mathura and Dwarka are sweetness mixed with awe and reverence in different degrees. Whereas Vrindavan is only sweetness. So if there's any reverence, then it's not going to take you to Vrindavan. Okay, so then the Raganuga path from spontaneous sadhana. So Raganuga sadhana, you get to Raganuga derived bhava, and you get Rag influenced prema, which is called Kevala prema, which is only pure love with full sweetness, with no conception of awe and reverence. So here's an example that's given NOD about Raganuga sadhana. Someone please read this.
Chandrakanti, a celebrated fair-faced girl, rigidly observed celibacy in order to obtain Krishna as her husband. She always engaged herself in meditating on the transcendental form of the Lord and always chanted the glories of the Lord. She did not desire to accept anyone else as her husband. She had firmly decided that only Lord Krishna would be her husband.
All right. All the ways to Chandrakanti. And then, okay, so this was, remember, there were two ways that one could come to prema. One was through, was it? How to get prema. Yeah, one was arising from bhava and the other is arising from mercy. So now we're going to look at mercy. That while it's rare to attain prema by mercy alone, in essence, all prema is achieved through mercy for the purpose of sadhana is to attract Krishna and the Vaishnava's mercy. So this is just saying that mercy is always involved. I was saying that yesterday, that sometimes you're a special mercy case, but everyone is a mercy case. Just that some people are doing things to get the mercy and they get the mercy. Other people do nothing and they still get the mercy. So this is what we're talking about, that you didn't really do sadhana, that you didn't even come to bhava, but somehow you just got some incredible mercy.
This is what we were talking about yesterday, Kripasit and like Pratapradra's son.
Yeah, that's the example there that you can see there on the slide. So Rupa Goswami says, prema arising from the great mercy of the Lord is explained. The great mercy of the Lord includes such things as the Lord giving his association to the devotee. So yeah, Maharaj Pratapradra's son, he had never done sadhana. He definitely wasn't on the level of bhava, but somehow he was just sent as a replacement for his father, because his father, who was actually on the level of bhava, couldn't go. So he's like, oh, go and see Lord Chaitanya on my behalf because he won't see me, so you just go. And then the Lord embraced him and he got prema like that. But that's very rare. Okay, and then, but even prema arising from the Lord's mercy has two types, and it's the same thing. That endowed with knowledge of the Lord's powers, and that endowed with only knowledge of the Lord's sweetness. So it's again Mahatmya Gyan. Yeah, so here we go, the similar thing. Prema from mercy with a mood of reverence with knowledge of Krishna's power and opulence. So it comes from Vaidhi sadhana, you get some mercy, and then Mahatma Gyan Prema. From Narada Pancharatra. All right, someone please read.
In the Narada Pancharatra,
It is said that
continue, Mataji.
if on account of profound veneration for the greatness of the Supreme Lord, one attains a great affection and steady love for him, one is certainly assured of attaining the 4 kinds of Vaishnava liberation.
Right. So this is giving the result of when one has this profound veneration for the greatness of the Lord. So the person really appreciates how great Krishna is because he's God, he's so powerful, he's the supreme controller and all this. So one really loves Krishna and develops steady love for Krishna with knowledge that he's the Lord. Then he gets the 4 kinds of Vaishnava liberation, which here we see the devotees going to Vaikuntha, which is generally that they'll go to Vaikuntha. But then prema from mercy with the mood of intimacy, with knowledge only of Krishna's sweetness. So this generally comes from Raganuga sadhana, and then you get the mercy. So it's kind of skipping bhava. It's just like you're doing some Raganuga sadhana. So you have attraction to Krishna's sweetness already. And then when you get the mercy, that becomes kevala prema or only prema. Let me read what it says here. I type some notes here, but then I sometimes forget what I write. For both Vaidhi Bhaktas and Raganuga Bhaktas, Sambandha Gyan, which includes knowledge of the difference between God and the jiva and their respective qualities, is a prerequisite for proper sadhana. Yeah, so everybody needs to have an understanding that Krishna is God and I'm not God. Krishna is God and Krishna's big and I'm small, basically, and I should serve him. So that's a prerequisite for anybody in sadhana. He says in Raganuga Bhakti, however, this knowledge does not restrict the feelings of intimacy with the Lord, and an awareness of Krishna as God is not part of his emotional cultivation. So yeah, in the beginning, obviously, there's a sense that Krishna is God, otherwise, how are you going to worship him? But then as that develops, then the knowledge doesn't restrict your feelings towards Krishna. And when you get to the stage of bhava, it has your emotions, your feelings towards Krishna are not due to his greatness. They're just due to his sweetness. He may be great, but that's not what excites you about Krishna. What excites you about Krishna is that he's sweet.
Mataji, like here that we see that the knowledge does not restrict the feeling of intimacy with the Lord. But I mean, I don't know the exact reference. I mean, I guess somewhere it is written that, initially you need to cultivate knowledge, and after some stage you need to give up that knowledge. Otherwise, it might act as obstacle in, going higher and higher and higher.
Yeah.
It's written. So it's kind of, conflicts with what is written here, that knowledge does not restrict the feelings of intimacy with the Lord.
Yeah. So it's a gradual process. The knowledge. It's not that you have to consciously give up your knowledge. Like you can't, like, something, you can't just forget it. But what happens is that your awareness of Krishna's sweetness becomes so intense that it makes you forget that Krishna is God. You just naturally forget. It just pales into nothing. In the same way that all your material attachments just like paled away into nothing. So knowledge of Krishna being God, that also just fades away into oblivion. Rukmini,
Okay.
how do you say Vani?
Mataji, please forgive me if I say something wrong, but it's going on my mind, so I want to ask.
Yes,
like our Guru Maharaj and senior devotees, all the senior Vaishnavas, as we are talking about this, they all are a prema bhaktas, because we are so fortunate that we can even see sometime all these symptoms of bhava and prema in them. At least bhava sometimes we can see, but will it, and they preach us also they know that Krishna is God. They give lectures like this. So how to understand this point?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, that's what is being said here, is that they have knowledge, but it doesn't restrict their feelings of intimacy. And it's not a part of their emotional cultivation. So the whole Raganuga Bhakti is, it's an emotional cultivation. And so when they're doing that, you know, they're following in the footsteps of a Brajavasi. So they're trying to cultivate that mood of Mother Yashoda towards Krishna. So Mother Yashoda doesn't have any sense that Krishna is God. So if you keep meditating on Mother Yashoda long enough, you'll also forget. Like that, by her mercy.
Thank you, Mataji.
So yeah, so that knowledge is there. And even, you know, like Arjuna in the Battle of Kurukshetra. So in the beginning, you know, Arjuna talks about how he's talking with Krishna like friends, lying on the same bed, sometimes teasing him, calling him Yadava and all this. So he knows that Krishna is God. It's not that he doesn't know, but his relationship of friendship clouds it over. And that's also, see, it's not like I was saying, it's not something that we need to consciously do, because remember when we're talking about how when Bhava Bhakti manifests, it's the result of the internal potencies of the Lord. So the internal potencies also include the Yogamaya potency. So Krishna, just like he covers the knowledge of the Brajvasis, he can cover our knowledge. And you know, you read in the Bhagavatam about the gopis of Vrindavan. So some people think, there was a question was raised, how is it that these gopis attain such an intimate relationship with Krishna, is so exalted? They never did any Vedic study. They never performed any austerities. They never even worshipped Krishna. How did they get to that point? And then it said that even the gopis, they did all these things in their previous lives. They studied all the Vedas. They did all the preliminary processes. They did all religious practices, sacrifices, austerities, and charity, and everything in previous lifetimes. And then, I mean, I'm talking about not the Nitya Siddha ones, but the ones who are like Sadhana Siddha gopis. And then they took birth as gopis. And then they took birth, and in that birth, they forgot everything that they learned. So that's kind of like the result of knowledge, is that you just forget everything that you learned and you love Krishna, and that's it. And Krishna makes that happen by the influence of his own internal potencies. So we don't need to worry about it. Like, oh no, I have this whole thing that Krishna is God. How am I ever going to give that up? We don't need to worry about it. And Krishna is so amazing. Krishna's energies work in such amazing ways that the preacher of Krishna consciousness can be on the level of Prema Bhakti and telling somebody that Krishna is God, and still in their heart not feeling that Krishna is God. But they're just repeating it. They're just repeating the scriptures, but their heart is not in it. When they meditate on their own personal meditation with Krishna, it's like, Krishna is not God. Forget that. What are you talking about? He's my son. He's my friend. He's my lover. That's it. He does what I say. When I chase him, he gets scared. When I yell at him, he cries. Okay.
Thank you so very much, Mataji. When I used read Krishna books, sometimes, as you said about gopis, it comes that they say Krishna sometimes like God, but then they are gopis. They are no tinge of awe and reverence, and they know this. So, as you explained, now it is clear that also. Thank you so much, Mataji.
Okay, good. Thank you. That was a good question. I like that. All right. So here's an example of mercy with spontaneous love from Bhagavatam. Please read.
The gopis in Vrindavan did not study the Vedas to
11.12.7.
Go ahead.
Not had they ever been in holy places of pilgrimage, nor did they devoutly execute any regulative principle, nor did they undergo any kind of austerity. It is simply by my association that they have gained the highest perfection of devotional service, taken from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.12.7.
Jai. I was just talking about this. That's funny. I forgot this slide was in here. Yeah, so in their birth as gopis, their present one, then they didn't do anything. It's just Krishna's mercy. Okay. All right, so now in the conclusion of this chapter, then Srila Prabhupada talks about the gradual progression from Shraddha to Prema. And if you go through this paragraph, which is under the heading Association with Pure Devotees, the first paragraph there, it goes through all the steps. He doesn't mention the Sanskrit words, but I've taken quotes from that paragraph, and you can see how it's all happening here. So he says, the beginning of ecstatic love of Godhead is basically faith. There are many societies and associations of pure devotees, and if someone with just a little faith begins to associate with such societies, his advancement to pure devotional service is rapid. So this is Shraddha. Shraddha means just a little bit of faith. It's not firm faith yet. Firm faith comes later at Nishta. But it's just a little bit of faith, like, okay, these people look happy. They must be doing something. There must be something to this. Let me go and see. That amount of faith, just that. So there's Shraddha. And then, yeah, because they see the devotees, they develop a little bit of faith in what the devotees are doing. They think the devotees are nice people. They look pure, they look kind. So then they go associate with pure devotees and they sadhu sangha. Then he says, follow the principles of devotional service under the guidance of the pure devotee and accepts him as the spiritual master. So when that happens, then when that happens, then bhajana kriya begins. So bhajana kriya takes place under the guidance of the spiritual master. The spiritual master engages the disciple in service. As a result of such activities, he becomes free from all unwanted occupations. That's anartha-nivritti. When he is freed from unwanted occupations, his faith becomes steadily fixed. So that's nishta. That's the firm faith, fixed faith, that no matter what happens, you're not losing your faith in Krishna. Then he develops a transcendental taste, ruchi, for devotional service, then attachment, asakti, then ecstasies, bhava, and in the last stage, there's pure love of Godhead, prema. So that's probably very quickly.
Mother, can you share this photo? This right side photo, that is the lotus photo. Can you share this photo of Bhakti Lata tree?
Can I share it? I don't think I have it saved separately. I have only like this. You can probably, I'm sure you can find it if you just do a Google image search, blossoming of the Bhakti Lata. I'll bet you find it.
Okay.
If you can't find it, tell me, I'll try to find it.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, so now we have some quotes here from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Someone please read.
This ever-fresh prema arises.
1.4.17. This ever-fresh prema arises in the heart of a person who is very fortunate. That person's behavior is very difficult to comprehend, even for those knowledgeable of scriptures. Shall I read the 1.4.18? Therefore, in the Narad Pancharatra, it is said, O goddess Parvati, the person who is mad with love of the Lord, being absorbed in the highest bliss, does not know at all his own happiness or distress. Jeev Goswami's commentary. This verse shows the difficulty in understanding a person with prema. Even he cannot understand what is happening.
There you go. So don't try to understand. Even the person at the level of prema doesn't understand that he's at the level of prema or what that means for him. This is something that's incomprehensible to the human intelligence. All right, so here's just a little summary of the progression. And you can see on the far left that is all happening due to Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and chanting. Those are the main processes that bring us from beginning there, the very bottom, animal life. Basically, the life of just eating, sleeping, mating, defending, working to get money so we can get things so that we can improve our eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. As most people live like that. But then with a little faith, you come to associate with devotees. And that's Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha. And that's like, you're already a mango, but you're a very unripe mango that's still a little bitter. And then by initiation from the spiritual master, you're engaged in bhajana kriya. And then that leads to anartana vritti. So then you're getting purified. Those anartas that are making you a bitter mango are going away. So what's happening is you're becoming less bitter and you're just becoming sour, bitter sour. So you go from bitter sour to sour through this Vaidhi or Raganuga sadhana bhakti. And then eventually come to Nishta, where you start to become sweet. So sour sweet. And the Shravanam Kirtanam keeps going on. And gradually you get a taste for that. And that's ruchi. And then that taste, because the taste is so sweet, you can't give it up. So you develop attachment for serving Krishna. So that's asakti. And then the mango is very sweet. So asakti, up to asakti, it's still sadhana bhakti. Maybe it's rupanuga sadhana bhakti, if that's your inclination, is you're attracted to Krishna's sweetness and you want to follow a person in ragatmika bhakti from Raj. But otherwise, if you have more of a mood of awe and reverence, your Vaidhi sadhana bhakti will continue. And then that will bring you to Bhava bhakti. So Bhava bhakti, then ecstatic love is starting to awaken. There's emotion, it's a preliminary stage, and the mango is getting sweeter. And then finally that fully blooms into prema bhakti. So the mango, totally ripe mango, very sweet, condensed sweetness, and one's love is pure. And even at that stage, Shravanam Kirtanam continues, never stops. In the spiritual world also, Shravanam Kirtanam. Okay, Rukmini, Hari Sevani, your hand is up. Is that from before, or you have another question?
No, it's, sorry, Mataji, I forgot to lower my hand.
Okay, that's fine. All right, that concludes chapter 19. Jai, any questions or comments on the chapters that we did today, just 18 and 19? Ruchi, Mataji.
Mataji, what are the two types of prema bhakti? Will we write in that?
Two types of prema bhakti. Let's find it. Yeah, this one. That endowed with knowledge of the Lord's power, and that endowed with only knowledge of the Lord's sweetness. Yeah, the sweetness one is called Kevala Prem. And the one where you know, where you're attracted to Krishna's powers and you know that Krishna is God, that's called Mahatmya Gyan Prem. You can see here the word Mahatmya Gyan Yuktash is one, and the other one is Kevala. Kevala means only, only sweetness. Krishna's only sweet. And the other one, and so it's not just one or the other, but the sweetness may be mixed with knowledge that Krishna is God. You know, I know God, I know Krishna is God, but he's a very sweet God. Right? He's a sweet God. He's not the kind of God that you know, is like a fearful God that's going to punish you or something like that. Some people might see Krishna in that way. Okay, anything else? Bimla Prasad's there. Hey, Bimla Prasad Prabhu, you the one?
No. I just like creeped in.
You just
I was
jumped
at the end because of that. No, it's like at the end, the sweet is at the end, you know, like everything ends the sweet comes at last. That's why I came for the sweet. And then take you the better melon first, and then I come for the sweets.
Okay, fine.
So I don't know. I'm not sure how much the students have bothered you, but
they're bothering me a lot, Prabhu. They're even asking me to do They're bothering me so much. They're even asking me to give
Yeah, I
another
was
class.
expecting. Yeah, a couple of devotees messaged me to ask, like, can we, like, kind of, I said, it's between you and Prabhupada Priya. I'm not in between. That's between you and them. Yeah, why not? They have got questions. I mean, why not? I mean, yeah, please, if you can, please help them out. Yeah, they need all the help they can get from you. So yeah, I am just here to just like, yeah, say goodbye. It's like, okay, you know, like until next time.
What's that?
Until next time.
Your voice is breaking up. Prabhu.
Oh, yeah, it's like internet connection is not very good.
There, it's
I'm just
better now.
saying, I'm just writing. Yeah, that's why I'm just writing. Until next time. I'm just saying until the next time.
Next
So
time.
you are like, yeah, you are like, you have to be a regular contributor. You got to be. It's because, yeah, they need you. They need you.
No, they're very good students. I'm very happy with all of them. They're very enthusiastic. They're always fighting over who's going to read. And and they ask very good questions. Yeah, they're very thoughtful.
Yeah,
I'm very
guess,
happy.
yeah, guess what? Yeah, guess what? Like when we started, we were like 35 plus students. And by the end of the first unit, and you know, it happens, like, you know, like the way, and only those who are like kind of really desperate and kind of, you know, desperate ones, the more adamant ones, the most incongruent, like, yeah, incorrigible ones. They're
Yeah.
the ones who like you are there with. So possibly
That's good.
yeah, possibly, yeah. So then these are the students who actually deserve you. So in that sense, thank you.
It reminds me of my Diksha Guru, His Holiness Sri Dayananda Maharaj, when he was in the way back in the 70s. He started a course. It was a Bhagavad Gita course at UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles. And they went to campus and they advertised this course, and they got over 100 students to enroll in the course. And the course went for a whole the semester, few months. So by the end of the semester, students are gradually dropping out. At the end of the semester, there were only 3 students left in the course, and those 3 all became devotees. And one of them is Mahatma Prabhu. He's an initiated guru. And the other 2 also, they stayed devotees their whole life. I can't remember who they were, but they're all amazing devotees, like super inspiring, ecstatic devotees.
Yeah, the best comes.
So it's good to come at the end, and then you see who the sweet mangoes are. Okay, enough small talk. I better get going. So
Please carry on. Go on, please. Sorry.
no, it's okay. Did you want to say goodbye to me, Bimala Prasad?
Nice. Nice.
I'm just waiting for your
until the
permission.
next time. I just know. I mean, no goodbyes. I mean, okay, fine. Just like wait for another day. Another day. That's all. Until the next time, as I said.
Yeah, thank you. So we agreed we're going to have a class
thank you.
Saturday from 3 to 4. So far, that's still
All right. That's between you and them. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you let me know.
And then-
Let me know if you want me to do another course sometime.
Yeah, why not?
Yes, Mataji.
More, yeah, like these devotees have to be ready for other things. Why not? Not just limited to them. The other devotees, they can like to invite somebody whom they think are like kind of, you know, like be helped. They need that kind of help. Yeah, why not? It's Prabhupada, this one thing. Not everybody can stomach you.
Hey, what are you saying?
Yeah, that's a compliment actually. Not everybody can stomach you. That's why they need to really find those people who can actually be helped. They need that kind of they are prepared for that kind of diet. They should come. I very eagerly I would like suggest and I request devotees. I mean, there are some devotees from who are also here. If they wish to invite Prabhupada with Mataji for their youth groups and youth farm groups or girls farm groups, I would highly encourage that. Highly encourage that. Even there's one student from Pakistan, you might be knowing by now, Kumari, if she has some plans in Pakistan or some English speakers, I would highly recommend that. Make good use of Mataji. Any plans to come to India anytime soon?
Yeah, I'm coming to India this year at the end of the year, November, December. Mainly we'll be in Mayapur and Puri, but I'm going to try to go to the Govardhan retreat in
all right, now I see. Okay, so we dare about that party. So, all right.
Yeah, so I'll be passing through Delhi. I'll be flying into Delhi and flying out of Delhi.
No, not that fast.
Bhima Prasad Prabhu, you're breaking up so much. There's nothing you can do about your connection.
Sorry. Devotees will catch you. I'm saying.
What's that?
Catch you. Will catch you. When
Catch
you come
me.
to Delhi.
Okay, fine.
Before you fly to somewhere else. Catch you there.
Okay. Yeah, that would be nice actually. That would be sweet. Okay, I must be going. I'm going to go out and Sankirtan. My team is waiting for me. I'll see you on Saturday. Please join if you can. Those of you who are not joining on Saturday, I wish you all the best in the rest of your studies. And I've really appreciated having your association to this course. It's really helped me to study the nectar devotion more deeply and also learn something from all of you and your nice questions and comments and presentations and all the hard work that I made you do. I hope you've also had a good experience. So Nectar Devotion Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. And we'll see you Saturday 3 p.m.
Hare Krishna, Prabhupada, Priya Mataji
Thank
ki
you so much,
jai.
Mataji. Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Krishna, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mataji. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you so much, Mataji.